Okay. Where did my admit button? There we go. Admit all. Wait. Hi, everybody. We're just admitting, and I'm going to add a couple of things to the chat box as we allow people to come in. Hi, Alice. It's good to have you here.
Hi, everyone.
All right, I think we'll probably go ahead and get started. We are recording this and we will post it to our website after. So if people come in late, they can catch what they missed there on the CT Boss website. Welcome everybody on this snowy day. I hope you're all warm and safe and dry. We are here to talk about Section 508 and making electronic information technology accessible. So before we launch into that, I have a few housekeeping items. Everybody is muted as you come in to eliminate background noise. This webinar is scheduled for an hour and we do expect to go for an hour. There's going to be time for questions at the end. And if you have a question during the presentation, feel free to place it in the chat and we'll try to get to as many of them as we can. We may try to unmute for questions as we go, but we'll see how that goes. I do ask that if you're not speaking, you keep yourself muted. I am Shannon Quinn Sheeran from Housing Innovations, and we are fortunate to have with us today Andre Brown, who is a digital creative communications consultant and Section 508 specialist. He serves at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, U.S. Food and Drug Administration, and the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs. So he comes to us with a wealth of knowledge and experience regarding the topic at hand, and we're very excited to have him with us. Welcome, Andre.
Thank you. Good morning to everyone.
Next slide. So we're going to talk about the background, why we're talking about Section 508, what it is, why it's relevant to the work that we do. Talk about optimization of source documents, how to make those documents accessible. So things such as Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, creating PDF documents that are tagged in such a way that people with accessible technology can read them. We're going to talk about website content and design, and then a quick summary, list of resources, and a time for questions. Next slide. Section 508 was incorporated into the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 in 1998. So we all know how much technology has grown since 1998. To achieve Section 508 compliance, we are striving to apply web-based standards, and that's what we're going to talk about here, some to the development of documents, videos, multimedia, and websites to allow equal access to information for all persons with sensory impairment. For individuals with visual and/or hearing impairments, this work facilitates the use of assistive technology software to interpret the content, excuse me, and either provide screen captions or have the content read aloud. Section 508 requires that when federal agencies and federal contractors develop maintain, or use electronic information technology, any person with a disability has access to and use of information and data that is comparable to the access and use by federal employees who are not individuals with disabilities, by federal employees, general public, by anyone who does not have a disabling condition. Next slide. So why is this relevant for Connecticut Bounce's state continuum of care? Because we do receive federal funds is the basic answer. Andre's going to go much more in depth with this as we walk through the slides. But at this point, suffice it to say that for people who have visual or cognitive impairments, the way documents are created and publicized matters and can have a great impact in enabling the reader or the consumer of that information to have a positive experience in taking in that information that is presented or not being able to. In the following slides, we'll walk through some simple steps, such as using fonts and colors that are clearly distinguishable, placing information or tagging it in such a way that there is a logical flow to that information, tagging pictures or graphics so that assistive technology can read it and understand it, and so on. We're going to touch on some more complicated processes, for which we'll point to some resources that you can go to if you need to make your documents accessible using that information as well. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Andre.
Yes. To also add, I know when people see the law dating back to 1973, people ask, okay, why so? It seemed like it was so long. How come this wasn't enforced earlier? And I would say, as far as 508, as far as the federal government agencies and contractors pretty much being ruled to satisfy compliance, I would say that law wasn't really technically enforced until the late 2000s, and that was due to watchdog groups, pressuring the government, and especially as content became more available digitally. That now is pretty much very much of importance in regards to satisfy that compliance. So an example of non-optimized document versus optimized, a good reference would be pretty much with this, pretty much the basics of a Word document in regards to a document being defined as far as a title, subtitles, body, heading, if it has a list, defined list as far as bullets. Not pictured would be images, graphs, charts, and also hyperlinks if a document has one. Pretty much setting these items and having them in place because as far as with an accessible document, all content on the document has to be pretty much defined and everything accounted for. So everything has to have a purpose in order for a screen reader to effectively read and pretty much articulate what's on the document to someone who can't see it, who is impaired. So this is a great example, pretty much an optimized document versus creating one in regards to not using the added features within Microsoft Word as far as adding lists or even tables or proper links. Once converted into a PDF or PowerPoint and it was not properly added, that's when you'll have accessibility issues compared to properly adding things within the document. So there are 3 steps to an accessible PDF. Of course, I just said the most crucial is optimizing the source document. Once you have everything in place, once it's converted, then you want to convert it to a tag PDF doc. Yes.
I think you want to switch back to the PowerPoint, I think.
Oops, I'm sorry. Didn't come back. There we go. So as I was saying, 3 steps to an accessible PDF. Optimize, as I just said, is the most crucial. Then convert it to a tag PDF. And then once it's converted to a tag PDF, taking advantage of the touch-up reading order to make any possible corrections that may add. And I will get on much more in these in detail in a moment. All right, optimization of source documents. We will now get into. So basically, simple goal is to use as much accessibility features in your source document as you can. An example of this is instead of changing the font size, font types, or color manually to creating a heading, use the predefined heading style in Microsoft Word, or instead of drawing a table, use the added table option in Word to create a table. Instead of creating a list by indentation or asterisk, use the list option to create a proper list. To compare it, it's pretty much the same thing as HTML. If anyone kind of knows the basics of HTML within web development, as far as creating web pages, pretty much it goes hand in hand. Instead of changing the font size, type, and color to stimulate a particular heading, you would use the heading elements, H1 through H6, for example. Doubling back into this, H1 typically would be your title, H2 subtitles. So making sure your headings in order. Headings cannot skip. For example, you can't go from an H1 to a H4. Everything has to be in structural order. Why? Because that way assistive technology based on those tags can differentiate headings from the rest of the regular text and provide some additional options on the top for quick navigation in regards to, for example, bookmarks, tabbing through a document. What you do not want to do is use, color for emphasis. So instead of using the heading, using bold text to point out importance. For screen readers, there's no way for a screen reader to properly explain that to someone that was impaired is trying to read through the document. So when you're finished with your source document and made it as accessible as possible, then it's time to convert it into a PDF. So we briefly already went over this through Microsoft Word, using styles, headers, proper creation of hyperlinks, proper labeling of images with alternative text. To elaborate, pretty much alternative text with images is pretty much explaining what the image is. So when a screen reader gets to it, pretty much the screen reader will explain what the image is based on the alternative text you provide. So that's very important. Also, when it comes to charts and graphs as well, is pretty much as the author being able to explain that in much detail as possible to someone who can't see it. Creating lists with bullet points, use of tables and labeling of cells. Now, this also is a helpful resource at the bottom. Actually, I can show you. This is a good resource that gives you pretty much screenshots and kind of serves as a little bit of a checklist that'll help guide you when creating documents in regards to using the source files for us in Word, explaining heading structures, table of content, headers, such as. So that's a good resource for you to use as well. That goes into detail. Bullets and lists. This is very important, as pretty much a good best practice is to definitely use the features within Word when creating structured lists. Therefore, once you convert it over to a PDF, it's properly tagged in regards to the built-in, which I'll explain that a little bit down the road in regards to the built-in conversion feature that will help properly tag your document once converted. So definitely a best practice to use your bullet list. Do not use, increase indent or decrease indent features to create lists or tables. Try to only use bullet lists of this. Open circles, squares, open squares. These are often the only types of bullets recognized and properly tagged. So for example, try not to use lists identified as pretty much using icons as bullets, if that makes sense. All right. Tables and labeling of cells. Tables should definitely only be used for including data before the layout. A common issue is authors, like to use tables pretty much as a layout for, convenience. And there's definitely not, in general, an easy way or easy method for creating accessible tables. If you have complex tables, highly recommended that a description or explanation of the table contents be included in the text of the document or prior to the table, properly explaining it. But tables with column headings in the top row, must have a top row formatted as a header row to identify pretty much what's the point of emphasis in regards to when it comes to rows and columns. So it's definitely important. This often results in table being read in the proper order and structure being maintained if the document is ever converted to a PDF format. So very important. And it's possible as an alternative to tables, highly recommended to use lists if you can, as an alternative, as lists are very, compared to tables, more easier to manage. All right, so example of a Word document and review accessibility features. So let's just say you finished creating your Word document and you're now ready to convert into a PDF. Well, in Word, there is a built-in feature where you can check to see if your the Word document is actually accessible. So to do this, if you have Microsoft Office, the Pro version, you just click on the Review tab, and once there, you'll see here it's the option to check for accessibility. So once you do that, you will get your inspection results right here, and it'll tell you the accessibility issues you have within the document. So for example, the errors that come up missing alternative text, which is common. And also the most common is images or objects that are not in line. With Word documents, all content must be in line because the screen readers can only read as a document as a document structure. So it's reading from top to bottom. So for example, and then you see it'll recommend steps to fix the accessibility issues as well. And then also once you click on it, it'll highlight what the issue is. So for example, this one has an inline issue, and it'll tell you the steps to fix here for selecting, right click. And you need to change it to wrap text. So I will select this, and then you need to choose, in line with text, meaning that all content has to be identified on its own line, for example. So now, once you do that, the error goes away. Alternative text, this one also doesn't. Gives you the steps to fix. Right click, edit alternative text, and it's here. So alternative text, pretty much you want to best explain what the image is. So here you could say, CT LS logo. Or pretty much if this is a template, pretty much you can explain more in the best detail you can, what's there. Once you have that in there, pretty much it goes away. So that's how you resolve the issues. Same thing here. Picture, alternative text, say icon, goes away. Alternative text, icon, goes away. Once everything's checked off, no accessibility issues found.
And Andre, for those icons, if we also had those documents, since they are they're links to the documents, we could also put in there, if we had them on a website, a link to another way that somebody could get to that document.
Yes,
Yeah.
You can provide pretty much best details you want to describe what it is,
Yeah.
icon link, or In more recent versions of Microsoft Office and also PowerPoint, there's an option to pretty much select it as non-descriptive. If it doesn't really provide anything of relevance or importance, therefore a screen reader will skip over it. So it won't be read. So that'll satisfy it as well. So once you have that, no results, then you want to go over to converting it into a PDF. So that's examples of accessibility features within the Word document. For PowerPoint, encourage you to use a pre-designed layouts.
Andre.
Whoops, I'm sorry. Now for PowerPoint, it's highly encouraged using the pre-designed slide layouts. It's definitely a must, pretty much using the built-in features, using the outlines and notes panels. It's definitely a must. For customized templates, they should be reviewed by a professional to ensure that there are also accessibility as well, accessible as well. Gives a little bit more background on PowerPoint. Every version of PowerPoint since at least 2000s contains a series of highly accessible slide layouts to encourage the use of these slide layouts, especially in newer versions. Using these templates will ensure that your files have correctly structured headings, lists, and proper reading order, similar to Microsoft Word. The correct use of slide layouts is probably the most significant thing you can do to ensure that your content is accessible. It sets up the text to be interpreted by PDF creation software and accessibility technologies, similar to styles and formatting in Microsoft Word. Right. There's more flexibility for complex content. It is better to PDF the PowerPoint document. PDF is pretty much the best solution because it's more flexibility. Don't have to deal with possible inline features, as we just saw in Microsoft Word document as well, and structure, order of content and page, full permission to structure the way you want, charts, tables, more flexibility, more images. Also check, add alternative text to images and figures. Also the same as Word. Content tag as a figure is not recognized or read by screen readers unless you add alternative text to tag properties. Provide descriptions is the best practice. Use check accessibility feature in PowerPoint. So PowerPoint also has an accessibility feature as well for our accessibility checker. Here's an example of that. So for that, you also want to click on review. Once you click on review, the feature is right here. And these are your results. So like I said, most common errors are alternative text. And pretty much you click throughout, pretty much it tells you, pretty much highlights all the images. This one's highlighting tables, no predefined header row. These. And it'll also give you warnings of content that they think will be an issue for screen readers to read through as well. And then also for PowerPoints, you cannot have duplicate slide titles. So definitely identify that. If it's a particular section that has multiple slides, best practice is to do it just to pretty much add, continue.
Or 1, 2, or 3 said would be.
Yeah, 1, 2, and 3. Yeah, just any way to differentiate. So that is the built-in accessibility checker for PowerPoint. All right, so now we're going into creating a tag document. All right, a tag PDF means that resulting PDF will contain tags, the same way that HTML contains tags, such as images, tables, paragraphs, which serve as a foundation for assistive technologies to know the semantics. In other words, the non-tag PDF is non-accessible PDF. Tag PDF usually means that PDF is accessible, although the PDF will still need to be checked to be made sure the tags are correct. The most important part of PDF accessibility are the tags. With tags, you provide semantics, meaning so that assistive technology can correctly interpret a specific piece of content, as it's the image, a paragraph, or a table. All right. So actually, so these are examples, you look to your left, of tags, as far as H1, P tags, figures, and tables. So this is what you would see on your left side, or should I say left nav. Give you a better example of that. This is an example of an accessible document, and this would be technically defined as an attribute tree. So these are all the tags. These are P tags. Up here, the figure.
Andre,
So
how
these
do
has,
you get to see this
you know,
on the document?
Yes. So on Acrobat Pro, on your
Which
left
is highly
side,
recommended,
this is,
right?
yeah. If you right click, you may not have this set up, so you pretty much have to do it the first time to set it up, but this will probably be blank if you never had this open before. And pretty much you can check all these off that you want to see. So this is be the tags feature. You want to have the order there as well. So primarily these two, all the rest are optional, but these are the most focal. So the tag, and this would be the order. The order is pretty much what you see as how the screen reader reads it. So everything is numbered on the page from top to bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's the order of the screen reader is reading it in relation to the tags. Here. You can actually hear what it sounds like. Maybe computerized, but let's see. Come on, it may not with this presentation.
Expose logo.
So there you go.
CT Boss Steering Committee Meeting Minutes November 20th, 20. Embed presentation. 1. Welcome. 2. Announcements. 2020 COC competition. OHUD will provide communities with a list of COC renewal projects to review. There will be a process for COCs to correct the list.
So that's how a screen reader sounds. It's reading everything in order and properly defined by the tags. These are list tags. So everything is properly defined. This is the bullet. So that's why it's crucial that you have your source document set up properly, and once converted over, pretty much this will be the end result. Now, everything is not going to be perfect. So this is where you come in pretty much to make edits. And I'll get into that more in detail in a second. So most common methods of converting a source document to a PDF.
Andre.
Using the plugins. Whoops, get to go back. There we go.
Perfect.
So using the plugins in the document, authoring tools such as Microsoft Office, Fire, pretty much what we went over in regards to the source document. Using the Acrobat add-in on your toolbar, click File, then save as a PDF, opening and converting. Now to elaborate on that, you definitely want to use the built-in feature when converting from a Word document to a PDF. So for example, where's mine? That's technically block, but on your top left, there we go. And usually here, you'll see it says Acrobat.
Mine says
And you would click on
Acrobat.
that. Yeah, say Acrobat, depending on which version you have. Sometimes it's here or it'll be on the side, but it's pretty much you want to click on that in order to convert over to a PDF. It's usually there. There's a couple different ways, but you want to use pretty much the built-in feature to do that. And by doing that, pretty much the built-in feature is pretty much when it's converting over for you is using the built-in OCR, which stands for Object Character Recognition, and how it's pretty much is recognizing the content as properly defined in your source document to convert it to a tag document. All right. Once you click on that, you see this, usually it'll pop up to create. And once it's created, pretty much the document will pop up for you as a PDF. Once the document is converted, pretty much the very first thing you want to do is pretty much you want to be familiar with these options in regards to the touch and also the properties. And I would get more into that. Actually, I can do that right now. So going back to the PDF and going to your right, you're going to have an accessibility menu. And probably the first time you probably need to go into your tools to add that as well. But once you click on that, you see here, check, full check. And then this is your touch-up reading order, actually right here. And this is what you would use, let's just say if some content is untagged, you would use that to tag the content manually if need be. Finance a figure and things like that. So that's the touch-up reading order that's being shown here.
I just want to add that what Andre is showing you here is also in the guides, the documents that were posted. So if some of it's going beyond you right now, just refer back to those documents when you're actually working with these PDFs.
Yeah, it's definitely detailed in those documents. Be a little overwhelming right now, but once you pretty much get more familiar with the options and Adobe Acrobat Pro, you definitely catch on very quickly in regards to especially
Andre, I wonder,
utilizing these options.
there's a question
Yes.
in the chat box that says, since you use the reader, we realize we use a ton of acronyms, as I know you are used to as well. Is there a way to tell a reader that it's an acronym and should be read as like COC, for instance, and not as a word?
As a word, yes. If you need to elaborate on anything, you do have an option, say, go to the H2. We go to the properties. You see there's an actual text option. So there, if you need to clarify anything, you can pretty much customize it here to get the screener to read exactly what you want it to read as an alternative.
Okay.
But you definitely want to use the actual text. Alternative text is more for images, but you want to do actual text. So
Actual
that comes in hand unless, for example, you have long URLs. So instead of getting a screen to read something that's a long web address, pretty much you can take advantage of this option as well.
Okay.
So you can definitely customize it how you want to read it.
Okay.
Now, a rule of thumb is as long as it's not super long, you're typing a paragraph or anything like that, then it's fine. If it's something, a couple or a line or whatever, then yes, that's totally fine. As long as you're not typing in pretty much a novel using that the actual text option.
So
So
did
you
you
do have that there.
when to get here?
Mhm.
So for instance, in this document, announcements 2020, and then we would want it to read COC competition. How would you?
So right
you
here,
just highlight, yeah, okay. So you highlighted what you want it to, okay.
yep. So for example, this is within a list.
Mm-hmm.
So you can down to it, and it's right here. So it does say that. Let's just say you wanted to change exactly what it says and elaborate.
We just wanted to say
right-click on it, go to
COC instead of reading COC as if it's a word instead of the acronym.
I see. So yeah, just right click on go to properties, and then you can change it here
Okay, great.
and customize it to wherever you actual text. All right. So that was a touch reading order. Now for the tab order, you want to, in order to do this, you want to go into page properties and you want to make sure that you pretty much change it to use document structure. You will need to do this every time. So in order to do that, you just go back here, go to File, go to Properties. And you want to make sure pretty much that's defined as a document. And you're fine with that. And for your page properties, that, and also to be, let me clarify, if your source file is pretty much tagged correctly, it's going to be used, document structure is going to be tagged here by default. With the slide. So yeah, this is going to be the default setting. So this is fine. However, the other setting here, file, properties, initial view, you want to make sure this is tagged as a document title instead of a file name. And actually, we're going to get into the properties shortly as well, in regards to labeling these as well. So that what that emphasizes, and that's detailed also in the reference document. All right. So here we go. Yeah. Metadata. Now for a document, pretty much it has to be properly defined in regards to a title, author, and a subject. All properties can be modified within Adobe Acrobat Pro. So this is an example. Going back into our document. To get to that, you just go into File and Properties and Description. Has to have a title, an author, subject, and keyword. So this properly, giving a document a title, that's what it emphasizes. All right. Elements not contained within a structural tree. Now, with a PDF, this is the most complicated of all common accessibility issues. It can have several sources. Most of these problems can be solved by creating a PDF from an accessible document to start. So this goes to pretty much it's elaborating on items that are not tagged, are properly tagged. So let's just say, this, for example, was not tagged. You have to go in here and pretty much manually tag it yourself in order to satisfy this. Now, easiest way to do this is pretty much, you're taking advantage of the accessibility, the checker. As you should be one of the first things you do once you have to convert into a PDF. On a check, and pretty much it'll tell you what problem needs to be solved. So this one says no alternative text. But to circle back to this, is pretty much is detailing content that's not tagged. A figure that's not tagged, or any content, a word, or anything like that. It's the most common issues. Another example is, let's just say you created a list in Microsoft Office not using the built-in feature. And as a result, you have pretty much empty tags. Any extra space you manually put in once converted over will result as an empty tag, or items could be skipped. So that's kind of an example that could result to this as well. We have adding text, PDF, accessible page content, accessible links. And pretty much that's Another example is, a web link that's not accurate. It's going to a page not found, so things of that sort. All right, go back to the accessibility checker. Adobe Acrobat Pro has its own Acrobat Pro accessibility checker. I just briefly showed automated solutions that checks accessibility issues. This will pretty much will be your best friend, basically, in knowing what you need to fix. So going back, pretty much it's here. Quick check, full check. Best practice, use the full check. This by default, everything is checked off. You won't need to change anything here. But down the road, if you get more familiarized with everything, you can customize this, but best practice to use this all, let it all be checked by default. Start check, and pretty much it'll tell you the results. Also provide hints for you to repair. So in this case, no alternate text for a feature. If you click on it, it'll take you right to there. And it took me here, but let's say you want to see it in detail. Just click on the touch-up reading order. And it's right there, figure with no alternative text. To fix that, right click, edit alternative text, and you can type anything here. As I said, put that there. It's there. Check again. And now everything is good. Check if I have no problems with this. So that's the built-in checker. And going back to the slide, let's just say if you have a lot of issues, pretty much you will get these results as well, but more in detail. And went over this already, by default, everything is pretty much checked off for you. Pull down menu, you can see what's available. Accessibility, that there'll be option checks. Start checking. Show you the issues, results. Common accessibility issues. Most common issues will be, table headings. Established table headings or a table with no headings. Elements not contained in the structure, document structure tree. That, for example, would be far as your attribute tree. If this is outside of this, pretty much everything has to be within its own structure. So that's all that is. Let's see. Tab order may be inconsistent with structural order. That is basically with the numbering. For example, like I said, numbers have to be in order from top to bottom. That's where it skips to a 4. And you need to reorder that. For that, you just go here and you can drag these tags to whatever list. So I just drag this down, now it goes from 1 to 3. So that's just making sure the tags are in order. And then, let's just say you want to drag the tags here. These tags do not properly define the order within the document or page. So it's not the true order. You need to go here to know the true order. So, all right. Images without alternate text, we went over that. All images have to have pretty much a description describing it. All text on this page lacks language specification. That is going back here, and this is in your properties. And it's being your advanced field. You just need to make sure you have a defined language. Usually, if your source file is correct, you don't have to worry about that. But every once in a while, it may not have a language specified. it'll just be blank. You need to come here and specify it.
Andre, before we look
Yes.
at an example, there's a question. Once people are familiar with the steps, about how long would it take to ensure that a source document and a PDF are formatted properly for a 2-page document, a Word document converted to a PDF?
I would say it all depends on the content. So that's a segment, pretty much paragraphs, list, no images, or just proper headings, for example. Like this would be an example of pretty much a clean document that doesn't have anything complex. So pretty much you wouldn't have any issues if you pretty much check that in Word, and then once converted over, pretty much it should pass without you have to make any adjustments or anything.
Okay.
So like it pretty much depends on the content, but let's just say if you have a table or charts or anything that's complex, pretty much if your source document is still pretty good and you have errors and as far as PDF, that pretty much your edits will be minor.
Okay.
In regards to the Adobe check finding maybe 1 or 2 issues. So it pretty much all depends on the complexity of the content.
And if there is a chart or a graph, like just a ballpark, how long might that take to put in the proper structure?
Chart or graph, the easiest way in regards to chart or graphs is, I would say, in leading up to it. Let's just say here, let's just say if this was a chart or a graph, the paragraph leading up to it, or it has, you could say figure 1 and explain what's in the figure, explain it in detail, then pretty much you're fine. Your alternative text doesn't have to be as, complex
Okay.
or anything of that such. If your table is complex, try to resort to using a list instead of a table. Or just pretty much best explaining it within a paragraph content leading up to any figure, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Thank you.
So for examples, pretty much provide examples in regards to the reading order, tab order, PDF metadata, which is, again, is your properties, which is here, will be in your descriptions tab.
Yeah, I
Those
think.
fields be filled out. Yeah, then using the
you gave
accessibility
us-
checker. Yeah. All right. So common corrections to issues, again, can't stress enough using styles and headers, proper creation of hyperlinks, proper labeling images with alternative text, creating lists, using bullets, using tables, and labeling of cells. And then also the built-in PDF conversion tool within Microsoft Word. All right, well, this also, lacks language specification. You go to your document properties and pretty much give it a language. And that's more for the screen reader and for the screen reader to articulate whatever language is in. All right. So on to website design and content and general practices. As far as website, all functionality needs to be operable by a keyboard. So please, let's just say, to elaborate on that is, as far as a user, the user needs to be able to tab through everything correctly by using, your tab button on your keyboard first, going to top to bottom to actually tab through everything. So that's what it emphasized. You want to avoid overlapping content, graphics, aligns, or text overlap. All functionality operable by keyboard, as I just stressed. And then these special items, attention to these things you want to pay attention to, which is images, forms, data tables, frames, navigation elements, dynamic content, things of that nature. So pretty much just you want to have it more, straightforward, as possible in regards to the complexity. I would say a common practice I use is if it's difficult for me to understand, it's going to be twice, 10 times difficult for someone who can't see it visually. It does have a visual to understand. So I always use that when, creating documents, or also for website accessibility for HTML as well. Color contrast is very important for all content. Best practice I use is you don't want to use, for example, blue on blue, green on green. So let's just say, a dark green font over a light green background. Someone who's colorblind, it's hard for them to differentiate the two. You don't want to use colors, that close, basically, for color contrast. Embedded content, properly format, iframes. For example, embedding a YouTube video, use the provided embed that YouTube provides usually on their page of the video in question. Sure that has title and description. Video needs closed caption and auto description if necessary. Activate closed caption when using uploading YouTube. Those are pretty much options and features within YouTube interface. Headers and section use auto sequential formatting, labeling of all items on page. So it's pretty much a straightforward, but like I said, with embedding to satisfy 5-way compliances, outside sources like YouTube, media players, they have the pretty much their options are 508 accessible. So as long as you use them there, embeds, you should be fine. Line spacing, ensure no empty lines between sections or text. Again, within a document, also on a web page, all content has to be, accountable. So everything has to be within a proper tag, whether it be HTML or would it be in documentations or PDFs in regards to as far as the tags. Going back here, for example, everything has to be accounted for. Content has to be within a tag, and same thing applies within a web page as well. There are ways to to add spaces within HTML, permits to be considered a break, BR. These are good resources for that, to take advantage of those as well, especially with tables or accessibility, dealing with mobile view, with things of that nature. So these are also great resources for that. All right. Electronic information technology accessible to all. Utilizing the accessibility tools within the software. Again, emphasizing pre-designed styles, layouts, and headers, lists, bullets, use label images, attention to color contrast, simplify flow and spacing on content, and keep resources on hand. So once you get, I would say the biggest challenge with this is just having a general understanding. And once you have a general understanding of accessibility, pretty much everything will pretty much fall into place for you. Coming into this, I've been doing 5-week mediation for 11 years now. In the beginning, I didn't have any knowledge of this, so it was very confusing to me on the sole purpose of it. But once I had an understanding of this, and pretty much, looking at these resources here, everything fell into place for me in regards to, okay, this is the significance of this and that, having understanding of this and that, and basically to, emphasize what the impaired, as far as making content accessible for them. I think we don't really take things, for granted in regards to, I would say, our biggest issue, I think we're all guilty of that, is kind of creating documentation based on assumption, expecting the user to assume what you're trying to emphasize. And like I said, that can become an issue to someone who is impaired in regard to expecting them to assume. So again, these are definitely great resources. I definitely stress to take advantage, of these to help you have an understanding on how to make these documents accessible for you. And the Section 8 508 guide was put together, with a guidance and step-by-step instruction on how to create accessible documents, including directions on where to go in the files and what to click on to achieve your goals, basically. So I hope this definitely helps you moving forward. And aside from that, are there any additional questions?
Any questions? If you have questions, put them in the chat box, or you can try to unmute yourself by clicking the microphone if you would prefer to ask that way. While we're waiting to see if there's any questions, I was working on uploading a video to YouTube and doing that. What am I trying? Closed captioning.
Yes.
But do you have to have a text, a script of what the video says in order to use the closed captioning, or is there some automated process where it interprets?
It depends on the source. In general, yes.
In general, yes, you have to have a script.
As far as a captioning,
yeah.
But I'll give you an example. Let's just say it's an audio version of, this that we're doing now. And pretty much there are captioning tools that pretty much record everything I say. And pretty much you can use that to add for the captioning.
Mm-hmm.
Now for YouTube, and it really depends on the source as far as the video, they do have built-in captioning systems. And the technology is getting better. I would say YouTube is the best. So within there would be an option to enable that.
Okay.
So the option is there. So I would say the most frequent, up-to-date, media players out there do have that option available.
Okay.
And then within that, there's also a custom option if you want to add your own captioning, if that makes better sense.
Yeah, thank you.
So I would say in general, not really much to worry about, but like I said, everything is kind of not, every size fits. So I would say once it's enabled, definitely go and watch the video and see if the captions properly pops up.
Okay.
And which it should be fine.
Okay. I was just told that
in regards to the
and if other people have questions, I was told that people cannot unmute themselves. So if you could try to raise your hand and I can unmute you, or just pop your question into the chat box if you do have one. We only have a couple of minutes left. Mark has 2 questions. Let me see, Mark, if I can unmute you.
Thank you. My question, first off, is around funding. I mean, this seems to be another unfunded mandate that we kind of have to deal with. And, we're not IT specialists. So when this recommendation came out last year, we worked with our web designer to sort of put in the skip tabs and follow the accessibility guidelines. But specifically around the imagery and the images on our website, it seems to be a tremendous amount of work to go into the back end of our website and really put in all these descriptors. So that being said, is this something that's just specific to our HUD-funded programs or our entire website? So the questions are, is there any funding to help us with this? And is it only for HUD-specific programs?
I believe, Suzanne.
Well, it's any federally funded program, so you may have other federal funding in your agency from other sources or flow through the state. So it's any federal funding that requires this 508 compliance. It's just that I think what HUD did is that they highlighted it last year in the continuum of care application by asking questions about what people were doing about this accessibility requirement that got it onto our radar. So just the history on that. And in terms of funding, just since I'm talking, I don't know of any sources of funding directly for this, but maybe Andre does.
That I don't know in detail. I do know that as far as any contractor or firm that has a contract with a federal agency or is applying for a contract, the requirement is for your website to be completely accessible.
I'm available, and Andre, maybe if you're not available, let me know, but I think we could stay on a few minutes for questions, but I just want to acknowledge that it's 11 o'clock. So if you have to go, we're still recording and the recording will be there. Or you can send questions to me, Shannon at housinginnovations.us, and I can try to answer them, or with Andre, work to answer them as best I can.
Sure, I can stay on and take more questions.
Mark, did you have another question, or was it the funding?
Yeah, I mean, the whole website, we have, obviously the largest homeless shelter in the state, and then our SOS permanent supportive housing program. So that's how we sort of discovered this this mandate. But we also have mental health programs, thrift store, soup kitchen. So if we were just doing it for the federally funded programs, it wouldn't be that too difficult. But to do it website wide would be a huge undertaking. And I'm sort of the in-house webmaster, so I'm learning as I go here.
Yeah, I hear you there.
Definitely understandable.
But thank you for today. We appreciate it.
No problem.
Thanks, Mark. There are a few people still on, so any other questions before we end? If you want to tell me in the text, I can unmute you. In the chat, I mean. All right, I think we will end. Thank you all for your participation. We know a lot of these mandates are challenging, but we hope to provide tools to at least begin to go in the right direction, to be compliant and get thinking about the way other people take in the information that we're trying to put out. Thank you so much, Andre, for being here with us and for all your assistance throughout putting this webinar together. We hope you all stay safe, warm, and have a great rest of your day. Thanks, everyone.